Hi, I wanted to talk a little bit about overnight respite and short breaks. Now, Kieran started accessing overnight respite when he was about 13. I was always of the opinion as he was growing up that we wouldn't have respite for him because actually there's nobody that can look after Kieran as well as we can. And there was no way I was going to allow any of that to happen. And even Daniel, as a small boy, when respite was first mentioned to us, said to me, "Oh, Mummy, if I had autism, would you send me away too?" And I was mortified. I wouldn't send him away. I'm not going to send you away or him away. And goodness me, no. And so already I was personally thinking that it wasn't for us. But the fact that Daniel thought that we'd be sending him off somewhere because of his disability, it didn't sit well with me at all. Then in the borough that I live in, they decided to close down the only overnight respite facility that we had for children with disabilities. So a friend of mine who used that facility asked me if I would get involved in a campaign because obviously it's really, really needed in all communities. So off I went to speak to the local councillors who'd been informed by our social service team that families like mine didn't exist. That's families who actually would really benefit from overnight respite. And so off I go and I gave a talk to the councillors, and clearly, families like mine do exist. There's lots of us. And the social work team then decided they were going to come and visit us at home and assess Kieran, and I think they were going to discredit me, like I'd made it all up. But when they came in, they were sort of horrified and couldn't understand why we weren't already accessing overnight respite. One of the reasons was because the social workers never told us it was available for us. I'd heard about it when Kieran was young, maybe about 7, but you don't actually access it in our borough till your child is 10 or 11. And it hadn't been mentioned since. So they assessed Kieran and decided that yes, he and we would benefit from overnight respite. And I was thinking, oh no, I don't want him to go to overnight respite. How did this happen? Why did I get involved? Oh, good Lord above, what am I going to do? So I thought, right, okay, let's go with it. And it was okay because actually we didn't have an overnight respite facility in our borough because they'd closed it down. So what was the risk? Luckily, our neighbouring borough had an overnight respite facility which could accommodate Kieran. And off he went. And he had a couple of tea visits before his first overnight. And oh my goodness, we were so worried. We just paced up and down when we took him for the tea visit, which was like for 4 hours. And then the very first overnight, it was just weird. The whole thing was weird. Kieran not being in the house overnight was just so strange. Bearing in mind that we are up with him most of the time and he's just didn't sleep very well at all. So it's quite normal for us to be up in the night, for Kieran to be up in the night. Suddenly there was this silence and it was strange, really strange. And it was really hard for me to make that decision. I know for all of us, it was really difficult for us to let him go. And, it was weird. But it was brilliantly weird because Kieran, he got to stay overnight. And when I was his age, at 13, I certainly used to go and stay at my friends overnight often. And it was fun, away from the family and my own thing, my own friends. And, just because your child has a disability, just because they have autism, doesn't mean they shouldn't have exposure or access exactly the same things that other teenagers do. And they would also go out on visits with him. So he went to Kew Gardens. It was hilarious. He joined somebody's wedding. I wish I'd been there. There's this couple having a wedding and Kieran's decided that he's going to have some of their food for them and he's going to take over the dance floor. It would have been absolutely hilarious to watch Kieran at the wedding, the great uninvited guest. Well, they took him to the Harvester for breakfast, which he absolutely loves. All the things that he would have been doing without the autism. He would have had a friend he'd been doing this stuff with. And that's what respite gave him. And it gave him his own space, his thing away from us. but fantastic. And they help with independent skills as well. Washing, and as he gets older, shaving and cooking, making his own toast and things like that. All the things that he needs to get him to the stage where he will have his supported living. You know, these stepping stones, they're essential. So although I was feeling really, so emotionally desperate about this whole thing, because, you know, he's got the ability of a 2 or 3-year-old, and there is no way I would have sent a 2 or 3-year-old on overnight respite. Good Lord, no. But, you know, it's different. So, and he loved it. And we loved it. We went out for a meal, Daniel and my husband and myself, and Daniel said, "Isn't it nice that we don't have to keep watching Kieran?" And it sort of occurred to me then, I had never really considered how all of this impacts on Daniel, because we go out somewhere and my husband and I, we watch Kieran all the time, make sure that he's okay and make sure that he's managing to eat properly, and if he needs to go to the toilet, we take him to the toilet and make sure that everything's okay around him, you know, that all the things that could affect him, his sensory perception and his tolerance, we're constantly watching. It didn't occur to me, Daniel was constantly watching as well. Daniel, his homegrown carer. Daniel, his homegrown person who's always making sure that Kieran's all right, suddenly was in a restaurant eating a meal and only thinking about himself, and he was 12. And I felt guilty, and I thought, why didn't I think about that? But I didn't. Well, now I do. But, you know, you live and you learn. But we could go to the cinema together. I mean, obviously, Kieran can't go to the cinema, go to museums. Daniel can have his friends round. You know, it's quite embarrassing sometimes with Kieran's behaviours for Daniel's friends to come around. You know, as a teenager, you don't want to have to explain, well, my brother's autistic and he might do this and he might do that. I mean, why would you want to have to like keep explaining that to people? It's traumatic enough being a teenager anyway. So Respite gifts us that as well. Huge benefits for Kieran, massive benefits for Kieran. Honestly, he loves it. And throughout the pandemic, when we didn't have the respite for him, he really struggled. It really impacted on his behaviour and how he was managing his whole world, because his whole care package had disappeared and it was really, really difficult for him. He's 18 now and he's just been transitioned over to adult services and started his new respite a couple of weeks ago. And for an adult respite, which is like huge for us as well. There are big men there, you know, because autism doesn't go away when they're 18 or other disabilities. They're there for life. And it's just like, oh my God, Kieran's like with all these big adults. But that's okay because he is a big adult. And he's been twice and settled in really well. And again, we have all the anxieties of new people and a new environment and his limited communication. Will they understand what he's trying to tell them he needs? And will he understand what they're saying to him? You know, it's huge. I mean, all the things that go on in your head prior to actually allowing your 7-pound, 11-ounce baby to go with these strangers to respite. Yeah, it's so difficult. But honestly, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. You know, I can go out with my friends for coffee or cocktails. Coffee. I can go down to my parents for a weekend and not have to constantly watch Kieran. I can have a conversation with my parents without being constantly interrupted. I can eat a meal without having to go to toilet duty for Kieran. I can cook without having to go to Kieran. I can have a telephone conversation. I can go to the toilet without Kieran coming into the bathroom. Yeah. Things that you don't think about unless you actually live with a child, a young person like Kieran. The things that happen in my everyday life that I just, you know, it's just what it is. But it's not terrible, it's just as it is. When he's at respite, I can do what you do. You know, I can go to the loo on my own. I'm 54. I can go to the toilet on my own. It's great. Respite's great. Respite's great for your children. Great for your family dynamic. It's so nice to be able to relax. And even if you're not sleeping because you're, worried that they're out, are they okay? You're resting. You're still resting. You haven't got to get up and look after anybody else. And if you have got any anxieties and concerns about sending your baby off, I would just say to you, do try it. Do give it a go. Have a look around. See what's available. Have the tea visits. Make sure it's comfortable for them. Make sure they're happy in that environment. The staff that are working there, you have to trust these staff, so make sure that you get a really good feel about the staff. Premises, not as important. If it needs a coat of paint, something needs a coat of paint. What's more important is the people that you're going to be trusting your baby with to look after and keep them safe and to help them develop and become the most independent person that they can be. It's a stepping stone to the next stage in their life. Also so important for their siblings to have that time as well. Every borough is different, and you need to speak to your local borough to find out how you access overnight respite. MenCap are brilliant to help you find advice, and just have a look around, talk to other parents who've got children a little bit older than yours, who've accessed services locally to you. And if you're working in a respite centre, if you're working with children or young adults like Kieran, thank you so much. Thank you for the gift that you give to us. We really appreciate it. And just keep doing a really good job. Make sure that this service is available, because it really does allow us as parents to recharge, have some fun time of our own, and then when our baby comes back to us, have more fun times with them, knowing that they've had a really good break away as well. And I know Kieran likes to get away, because I don't stop talking, and he must be thinking, oh, for goodness sake, is she still going on? I am. Anyway, you take care, and God bless.